Making the complex understandable, that's what we do. That will be the essence of much of today's program. Greetings, my friends, and welcome. You are tuned to the most listened to radio talk show in America, hosted by me, Rush Limbaugh, the most talked about host in America. Great to have you here. The telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. A federal judge in South Texas on Monday temporarily, and that is a key word here, temporarily blocked Obama's executive action on immigration, giving a coalition of 26 states time to pursue a lawsuit that aims to permanently stop the orders. This is, by the way, an AP story. And not all of this is correct, obviously, but this is the umbrella under which everything is going to be discussed here today. The judge's name is Andrew Hannon. His decision comes after a hearing in Brownsville in January and puts on hold Obama's orders that could spare as many as 5 million people who are in the country illegally from deportation. The judge wrote in a memorandum accompanying his order that the lawsuit should go forward and that without a preliminary injunction, the states will suffer irreparable harm in this case. He said the genie would be impossible to put back in the bottle. So basically, he wants to put everything on hold until the lawsuit's dealt with. And that makes this whole thing, and I can't emphasize this enough, this is a temporary order. It is not, much as everybody would like to think it is not, and I've consulted legal experts on this, because I wanted to make sure that I got this right. It is not a ruling on the merits of the lawsuit brought by the 26 states. This is not a ruling on the merits of the whole subsidy argument. Let me restate what that case is. And this is Obama and the left being caught by their own brilliance. Obamacare clearly states that only the states can set up exchanges that offer subsidies. The federal government cannot do it. That's in the law. Well, all 26 states did not set up exchanges. They're suing on the basis that Obamacare is unconstitutional. They can't be forced to incur all these new expenses, and they can't be forced to implement all of this. So 26 states do not feature exchanges where citizens/customers can qualify for subsidies. When the regime saw that, they said, well, we'll just set up a federal exchange and we'll get the people subsidies there. But they can't do that. That's not in Obamacare. That's against the law, per se. And that's what the lawsuit's about, is having a court rule on the original intent, if I may put it that way, of Obamacare and the subsidies. It's very clear, and Gruber, the idiot who thinks we're all stupid, made it clear this was a political ploy. It was intended to put pressure on states, Republican governors, to go ahead and implement Obamacare because the political pressure was their citizens are going to be demanding these subsidies so that Obamacare is affordable. And they specifically in Obamacare mandated that only the states could provide subsidies for Obamacare. That was to force any recalcitrant Republican governor into going along with it. Well, 26 governors, not sure all Republican think they are, said no way. So that left citizens in 26 states without access to subsidies. Well, when the regime saw that, when they saw their political ploy failed, they just said, well, we'll offer the subsidies at healthcare.gov. Screw it. But that's against the law. And that's what this Supreme Court case is going to decide. Now, we're still in the midst of great peril here on this. The Supreme Court, the only reason we're here is because the Supreme Court started all this by being gutless in dealing with the very first case, constitutionality, dealing with the Fourth Amendment and the Commerce Clause. They punted on, they didn't punt. They rewrote the law from the bench to make it quasi-constitutional. rather than rule on it as a strict case of law up and down for a host of reasons. Now, what's going to happen next is that the regime is going to oppose this judge in Texas's order, going to appeal, and that will happen at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And I believe the Fifth Circuit's in New Orleans. Doesn't matter where it is. I'm just throwing that out as a tidbit. And according to some legal people I've spoken to, and based on precedent, they expect, and I'm not trying to be a downer here, and I hope this is wrong, they expect the Justice Department to win the appeal. They expect the Justice Department to win at the Fifth Circuit based on the way this case, this law has fared in courts previous. And one of the reasons for this, I'm told, is that the circuit courts and the Supreme Courts do not want these lower district courts having anything of real import to say in terms of determining whether or not Obamacare is constitutional. They want that for themselves. And one of the ways, and you've heard this phrase before, one of the ways that cases have been thrown out, legitimate cases have been thrown out, is for a higher court to say that the plaintiff doesn't have standing. And if the plaintiff doesn't have standing, then he can't legally be in court making a case, and therefore there is no case, and therefore it gets thrown out, and therefore it may as well never have happened. And that is one of the, I don't know if it's a legitimate fear, one of the possible things people are looking for to happen here. And my friend Andy McCarthy thinks that we might even get a decision from the Fifth Circuit late this afternoon. So just to rephrase, and this judge in Texas, this is a gutsy guy. This is a gutsy guy, and he's doing the right thing, and it's. I think when people like this stand up and do the right thing, they need to be applauded, even though I must stress this is not a ruling on the merits of the lawsuit brought by the 26 states that claim they will suffer profound financial and other damage from the president's lawless executive action demanding they provide subsidies and so forth. So the Justice Department will seek an emergency order from the Fifth Circuit to block the injunction, which is what Judge Hannon's decision is. It's a temporary stay, it's an injunction. And if the Fifth Circuit does indeed block the injunction, that would not be a ruling on the merits of the case. The merits of the case are not yet being ruled on here. It would just mean if the Fifth Circuit rejects the state judge or the federal judge in Texas, it would just take us back to the status quo that allows Obama to go ahead with the implementation of his amnesty decree, and that would take us right where we are, back to the Senate, where that's the only place this can really be stopped. The only place this can be stopped is in the Senate, and that is problematic because the Democrats in Senate, we can't get a vote out of there. And it doesn't appear to be all that great a desire on the part of the Republicans in the Senate to get a vote out of there. So it's you hear the words shutdown being bandied about now, and shutdown supposedly automatically attaches to the Republicans. No matter who's shutting it, it's going to be, if the Department of Homeland Security ends up not being funded in all of this, it's going to be because of Obama and the Democrats. Now, that will not be reported. The Republicans are going to get blamed for it. But the fact of the matter is, if the Democrats refuse to vote for this thing in the Senate, or if it somehow goes to Obama and he vetoes it, doesn't matter. It's going to be the Democrats that will be defunding Homeland Security during this reign of terror being sponsored by ISIS and other terror groups. So it's an absolute mess. And many people think that the only ultimate way to stop Obama from implementing this amnesty, it's risky, it's dicey to rely on the courts simply because of the way the courts have dealt with this issue before today. I mean, look how excited everybody is because one judge in Texas finally did the right thing. One judge in Texas finally did it. This may make the third or fourth judge who has done the right thing. And previous to this judge, there were federal district court judges who claimed Obamacare was unconstitutional. They were countered by other federal district court judges. That's why it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court essentially punted. But the idea, everybody gets excited because one judge has finally said that Obama doesn't have the right to do this and wants to wait for the Supreme Court decision on the 26-state lawsuit. Because once his thinking is very smart. I mean, if we start implementing this, and the Supreme Court finds against the regime down the road, the judge's point is, well, it's going to be pointless. If the regime already begins to operate by providing subsidies when they're not allowed to, and the Supreme Court says that's unconstitutional, it's against the law because Obamacare doesn't state that, well, sorry, it's too late. It's already been implemented. You can't pull the subsidies back. We're not going to withdraw an entitlement, per se. So the judge wants to just bring this all to a screeching halt until the Supreme Court rules on that lawsuit. But what if that doesn't go our way? That takes us right back to where we are in the Senate on this whole thing. And it right back to where the only, since the Republicans have said that they're not going to use impeachment, the only way to stop Obama is to deny him the money to implement the amnesty. And that ball is now in the Senate. And some are suggesting that Republicans start playing with the filibuster rule the same way the Democrats did. Well, it would be lovely. It would be poetic justice, among other things, but it would also be good. It would work. It's the way that you take the Democrats out of the power position in the Senate on this is by eliminating the filibuster, which Harry Reid did all the time. Harry Reid threw out, the filibuster's not in the Constitution. The filibuster is a Senate rule. The Senate can change its own rules any time. If Mitch McConnell wanted to go for it, he could eliminate the filibuster, just like Harry Reid said, you know what? We're not going to allow filibusters on judges here because I want Obama's nominees to get through and appointed, nominated, and confirmed and all that. So we're going to get rid of the filibuster. And everybody bellyached and moaned about how this is selective application of the rules and the Democrats changing the rules on the fly. Well, we ought to do the same thing since we're now the majority in the Senate. But it doesn't. I don't know whether that would ever happen. Depending on who you talk to, you get different interpretations of the degree of courage, amount of courage that exists in the Republican leadership in the Senate. And then there are others who are saying on our side, this is crazy. We can't sit here and be arguing over money for the Department of Homeland Security when we've got ISIS in his reign of terror out there. Just pass the bill and send it up to Obama. Let him have it. This is the open borders crowd. It's going to happen anyway, they say. Obama's going to get his amnesty. All this is a waste of time. Just go ahead and fund the department rather than play these games. There's all kinds of pressure, all kinds of different opinions on the conservative/Republican side inside the Beltway over what to do about this. So we'll have to wait for the next phase of this, which is the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal to rule on the regime's request to overturn the judge in Texas and his decision. And again, that could happen sometime late this afternoon. Let's take a brief time out here. We'll continue. Your telephone calls be part of the program as always. The number, 800-282-2882. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, sorry for the confusion, folks. I ended up combining two things here, and for those of you that are profoundly informed, I'm sure that what the heck is Rush talking about? I got confused on the lawsuit brought by 26 states. There is an Obamacare lawsuit involving subsidies, 26 states, and there's also another one involving the number 26, and I ended up confusing these two issues. This is about amnesty. This is totally about executive amnesty. The judge in Texas has issued an order temporarily prevent the regime from implementing the executive action. Specifically, it would prevent Obama from issuing work permits for illegal aliens who do not have statutory authorization. The stay that he has ordered would allow himself, the judge, a chance to issue a final ruling on the merits of the case, which his ruling does not do. He has not ruled that Obama's executive amnesty violates the Constitution yet. That's not what his ruling did. It just brought it to a screeching halt until a lawsuit involving this is decided. The thinking of the judge is that if we go ahead and Obama grants his amnesty and then the lawsuit rules against Obama, that it's going to be difficult because the genie's out of the bottle, the toothpaste is out of the bottle, how do you put it back in? So the judge is simply saying, hey, I'm going to stop all this until we get an effective ruling. Now, in the process, the judge, in order to, when he issued the stay, he had to decide that the states that brought the lawsuit had demonstrated a likelihood of success in the merits. Anytime a judge issues a stay, it's because the judge has assumed that the people who bring the lawsuit are going to win. So in his judgment, the 26 states have shown that they have standing to sue the government. In his judgment, they have shown that Obama violated the law. And third, they have shown they will suffer concrete harm from the violation, particularly the economic harm. And that's the basis for the stay. And it's temporary. And the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal is getting an emergency hearing or granting an emergency hearing on this. And the decision on it could come somehow late this afternoon. And that's basically the upshot of it. The important thing here, it's a gutsy move by the judge. It's a profoundly gutsy move by the judge. But it does not deal with the merits of the lawsuit brought by the states that claim they will suffer profound financial and other damage from this lawless executive amnesty. Don't forget, Obama himself, several times, while on Univision or Telemundo, maybe a combination of both, Obama himself has said numerous times he doesn't have the constitutional authority to do this. He's told audiences that were mad at him for not acting sooner on amnesty. Hey, I'm not an emperor. Hey, I'm not a king. We have laws, and I just can't violate. Well, now the Republicans have signaled they're not going to stop him, and he's into his final 2 years where theoretically he's not running for anything ever again. And if nobody's going to stop him, why should he stop? So it's what's become clear here, as Axelrod made clear, Obama was always in favor of gay marriage, just lied about it so as not to be harmed electorally. Same thing with this. He's always wanted amnesty, and he's always known he's going to do it. He just said back when he had to face voters, sorry, I can't do it. I'm not a king. Well, now he's always thought he's a king. He's always wanted to act like one, and now he is the last 2 years, back after this. I think by my count, Obama has said that he doesn't have constitutional authority to grant amnesty over 22 times. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This guy makes Brian Williams look like a piker. Nobody cares. You can't get people revved up over this guy's lies. You can't get people revved up over what he makes up, his statements of grandiosity. You can't get people revved up over his violation. Well, not true. I mean, the sad fact is that the vast majority of people are revved up. It's just there is no similar media focus on Obama like there is, for example, in Brian Williams. I'm just here to tell you, if the media were examining and scrutinizing Obama like they've been Brian Williams, it'd be a whole different ballgame we're talking about. You know it and I know it. And it's just a sad reality of what we're all up against and what we're dealing with. And so many people, I think, have given up. I think it explains, in part, the recalcitrance of the GOP in Washington. Hey, we're not going to beat the media. It's foolish to even try. All we're going to do is aggravate them even more. People are going to end up hating us even more. It's an obvious circumstance. It can be overcome. I was started to talk with Scott Walker yesterday for about 45 minutes after the program, and he had a great line, instructed the editrix of the Limbaugh letter for a pull quote, something he said. And I'm going to paraphrase it. I don't have it right off the top of my head. He said that you don't triumph by running to the middle and trying to gain support of moderates, centrists, or liberals. You win by fighting and with bold leadership. Now, obviously it's common sense. The reason it is such a dynamic quote is that there isn't any leadership, bold or otherwise. There is almost an abdication to the reality that we can't beat the media, and so the best we can do is limit the damage. It's just got everybody frustrated. Here's A.B. Stoddard. She was on Fox News this morning, John Scott. This is just about an hour ago. And it's not that A.B. Stoddard is anything special. It's just that she has, this little soundbite, encapsulates the thinking inside the Beltway on the judge's ruling in Texas and what the Republicans ought to do now. Here's the question she was asked. Does this judge's ruling take Republicans off a bit of the hook? I mean, they were looking at the potential shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security next week because they don't want to fund Obama's executive actions. But if the judge has said that you can't do these executive actions now, do Republicans find their way clear to go ahead and restore full funding to the Department of Homeland Security? And this is the trick that is going to be employed. The pressure is going to mount on the Hey, look, the judge ruled in your favor. Now you can go ahead and fully fund the damn thing. You don't have to play these games with defunding these three parts of the department. Go ahead and fund the whole thing because the judge is going to take care of it for you. And this is essentially what she's saying.
I think the smart thing would be for them to get out of the corner that they boxed themselves into and pass a clean DHS funding bill when they return next Monday, the 23rd. Their attempts to pass the House-passed bill, which includes those policy riders which block the president's executive action, have failed 3 times in the Senate. Democrats are not going to budge. They continue to say in a time of heightened threat, Republicans are threatening our national security by withholding DHS funding. It's a political loser.
She knows it's not the Republicans withholding the funding. It is the Democrats by refusing to vote on the bill, and the president would veto it. She knows that, but yet here is the way it's being portrayed. It's the Republicans withholding funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And that's really the only weapon they've got, unless they're going to suspend the filibuster in order to take that weapon away from the Democrats in this, which is what Harry Reid did. And the media and the left, of course, applauded that. Anything to stop the Republicans. Well, conversely, anything to stop the Republicans also means anything to assist Obama, anything to help Obama. So in this case, what the Republicans must do is anything and everything that satisfies and meets the demands and desires of Obama. So be going against a huge current. This is the pressure that's being applied.